Am I the a-hole for threatening to evict my estranged father and his entire family from the house he currently lives in? Guys, my name's Mr. Reddito. Click that subscribe button if you enjoy and you want to support the channel, as I read daily stories, and I'm not gonna lie, this one's crazy. It comes complete with an update, so let's get right to it. My parents are divorced when I was 10, because Dad quit his job and refused to work so he can gamble and drink all day. Our country has crappy laws about child support, so Mom had to support my sister and me on her own. Growing up, I tried reconnecting with my dad, but it felt like all effort to reconcile was from me. So eventually, I gave up and minimized contact. I kept in touch with Dad's side of the family, his siblings, and my cousins. I do have a good relationship with them. Fast forward to now, and my sister and I are living comfortable lives. Our parents remarried. My mom married a nice man and they live overseas. 5 years ago, Dad married a girl who's the same age as my younger sister. She was horrible. Whenever my sister would reach out to our dad, she'd get mad and accuse my sister of trying to, quote, steal him. They have a son and I've been nice to him, but because of Dad's wife continued her little rotten streak, my sister and I decided to cut ties with them. Dad's mom did die last year. A few months ago, my aunt, who is my dad's older sister, who's in charge of their parents' assets, called us to tell us about grandmother's will. Our grandfather is also dead, by the way. All of our grandparents' assets have been divided among grandkids. I got my grandparents' house. The house where my father and his family live. Since I live miles away from the said house and have no plans of moving there, my aunt suggested I sell it and keep the money for myself. My aunt was pretty insistent that I sell the house because she said it's what my grandmother would want. My dad neglected her during the last years of her life and put her in a home. He also apparently sold her burial lot to buy drugs. So I agreed to sell the house since it is my inheritance after all. I haven't sold the house yet, but I called my dad to tell him about it so they can start looking for a house. I wanted to give him a heads up and told him they can stay there as long as I don't have a buyer yet. My dad was obviously not pleased, but he didn't argue. Meanwhile, his wife got angry and called to scream at me, saying I was being selfish and that I did not need the house. She also let slip that her parents and siblings also live there, so basically freeloading. She tried to make me feel guilty because now they have a rent. Ugh, I ignored her. Then she went on harassing me via text message, calling me names. At this point, I got pissed, so I told her if she doesn't stop harassing me, I will have them evicted ASAP, even if no one's buying the house yet. My dad found out and he told me I was an a-hole to his wife. His siblings found out and they had my back. They said that his wife was never nice to them. And apparently, she's the one who persuaded my dad to remove my grandmother from her own home and put her in an elderly house so her own family can move in. Am I an a-hole for selling the house? That was a wild beginning. I hope, in my personal opinion, that OP stays with the gut and does not allow the family to stay there and continues to sell the house. Let me know exactly what you guys think of this story so far before this update. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying these stories, consider subscribing so you never miss an update. Here we go, guys. Here it comes. The past week was exhausting, both physically and mentally, but here's an update. Following most of the advice here, I decided to have them evicted as soon as I could. A couple days after my post, I flew to my parents' hometown where the house was. I decided to stay for a week. I asked my best friend for moral support, so he flew in the next day. My aunt was able to get in touch with her lawyer there, who gave me papers I needed to establish ownership of the house. She also got me in touch with the local police. My aunt is out of the country, so she couldn't be here. In my country, there are laws protecting squatters, and they can actually dispute being evicted. So I spoke to the cops and asked for help in case things got ugly. It's a small town where people know everybody. They know how much of an a-hole my dad was, and my grandma was highly respected in our town because she used to be an educator. It did not take a lot of convincing for them to agree to help. I contacted the old caretaker of the house, whom my dad fired. I asked her to accompany me. I also did some digging for information. Apparently, the wife and her family have a house, but mine was way bigger and nicer. 2 days after I flew in, I went to the house with my best friend, the caretaker, and a couple of police to give my dad and the freeloaders a 3-day notice. As expected, Dad's wife made a scene and became hysterical because, quote, they'd be homeless. Called me heartless, ungrateful, cruel, etc. My dad was passive. He acted the same way when Mom kicked him out. Didn't argue, but also never admitted his fault. He said he would not wait for 3 days and would leave the next day. He told me I was an ungrateful daughter, and I would get my karma. A lot of people here also advised me to make sure they would not steal stuff, but I honestly don't care about the stuff. I told them they can take what they need, except for a few pieces of furniture. The hardwood and antique ones that my grandmother loved. It would make cleaning up easier anyways. Come eviction day, I did not speak to them. I just watched as they hauled their stuff onto a truck. Paid the caretaker to clean the house in the next day and told her she can have whatever she wanted from the house. Grandma would have approved. I had the locks changed, installed extra locks, chained the gate, cut contact with Dad and his wife. Next step, I'm gonna sell the house. I'm planning to sell it below market value just to get it over with. And that's that. I still have a lot to do in terms of the house sale, but at least the drama's over. I'm tired but relieved. Well, it turns out everything worked out for OP. The only thing I can say that I would recommend, don't sell the house below market. The hard part's over with. No more toxicity, just sell it for market or above. Guys, what do you think of this update? I personally love a happy ending like this. Our next story might not be the same. It's about an entitled mother who calls the police on her daughter's boyfriend. This one is absolutely crazy and I can't wait to get into it. So let's do that right now. This happened about 5 years ago. My fiance and I have been together for 7 years this month. We're hoping to get married this year, but might postpone due to the circumstances. We were reminiscing some old stories yesterday when this one came up, and she suggested I share it. She was my girlfriend at the time, and at the time, I was fully aware that her mom was a few fries short of a Happy Meal. But this was the pinnacle of her behavior. If you guys enjoy this story, I actually have a few more I'll share if you like. Here we go. The cast is EM, entitled Mom, my future mother-in-law, girlfriend, whose name is Ellie, PO, who's the police officer, and obviously I'm OP. Here's the story. Ellie and I weren't living together at the time. She just stayed over from time to time when she could. I took her home after she's been staying with me a couple days and was heading to work. But shortly after, just before getting to work, I got a phone call from her and I can tell she was in tears. Apparently, when she got inside, entitled mother immediately blew up on her about being gone for so long. Even though it was only 2 days and she told her she was going to be gone. and kept in contact with her while she was gone. But Ellie just sort of brushed it off and went to her room. EM's house was pretty much your stereotypical crazy cat lady house. House badly decaying, cats all over the place, going to the bathroom in random places and whatnot. And when Ellie gets to her room, she realizes while she was gone, the cats peed and pooped all over a pile of her clean clothes. But whatever. Ellie decided to just bag them up as she would and wash them the next time she came to my place. Her mom didn't even have a functioning washer. And apparently, that really set Entitled Mother off. Entitled Mother apparently thought Ellie was bagging her clothes because she was planning to go back to my place that night to stay for another few days. So, she stomped into her room, grabbed the bag, ripped it up, and flung the clothes all over the room, along with all the cat poop and pee, while screaming at Ellie that she's not going anywhere. That's when Ellie ran outside and called me. She was so upset, and I didn't know what to do. Her mom had been doing crazy stuff to Ellie since I've been with her, but up until I just helped her however I could, while not getting too involved and not saying a word to her mother. I told her to go ahead, get the things she needs, I'll take her to my place. She said she would love that. I told my work I was going to be late due to an emergency, turning around and went back to pick her up. When I pulled back to the house, Ellie was in the driveway crying. I went and hugged her and told her it's going to be okay. She could stay with me as long as she wanted. So, she went back inside to get her things. As I was standing outside waiting, I heard the door open again, and went to help Ellie with her things. Oh, it's her mom. EM comes stomping out with her hair crazy and frizzled, and an old nightgown. She beelines for me and gets right in my face. EM, with an extremely thick, high-pitched southern accent, says this: "My daughter said I need to come out here and ask what you think of me." I knew that was a blatant lie, as Ellie would never instigate this. "You got something to say, huh? You think I'm trash, don't you, huh? That's what I think you is, isn't it?" Again, up until now, I'd completely kept my mouth shut, and was trying to maintain that, but this woman was up in my face, freaking out, and was tormenting the woman I loved. So, I finally looked at her and broke my silence. "Why do you treat her like this?" "What you mean? That's my daughter, and I worship the ground she walks on." "Oh, really? So, calling her blank, blank, and blank is worship?" "Yeah, I've heard her say that with my own ears." "Oh, I would never say anything like that." Bullcrap, I've heard you say it." At this point, EM explodes, saying, "You get your ducking behind off my property." Okay, I'm almost never finding myself in these situations, so I'm just not used to it. I say that because after she said this, I pretty much saw red. I'm not proud of it, but I just started shouting every curse word in the book I could possibly think of at the top of my lungs while she went back into the house. Thankfully, that only lasted a few seconds and I immediately calmed down. So finally, Ellie comes back with her stuff. We put it in the car and I assume it's over. But Ellie turns to me and says, "I'm sorry. We can't leave yet." Why not?" "My mom called the cops on you." I sort of had a feeling that would happen. It's no big deal. We just sat and waited for the cops to arrive. After about 10 minutes or so, a cop car pulls up. Right when he does, Entitled Mother comes out of the house. And oh my gosh. Yes, she was doing exactly what you think. She instantly puts on the fragile, brittle old lady act, hunched over, walking slowly, the whole shebang. And of course, when police officer asked her what happened, she has to pitch her entire medical chart to the guy. Ellie will tell you this woman has been terminally ill for 12 years. Laugh out loud. So, when she finally gets done trying to milk this poor guy for sympathy, she tells her version of what happened. "Sir, he came onto my property and verbally attacked me. He's awful to me, sir, and I've never done anything to him. He's turned my daughter against me and is trying to convince her to leave me." At first, he seems somewhat sympathetic to her, until he turns to Ellie.
Ma'am, is that your boyfriend?"
"Yes, sir."
"Okay, how old are you?"
"Sir, I'm 23. This was my favorite part because the officer looked up from his notepad with a look of, "Wait, what?" Obviously, he was thinking Ellie was a minor or something based off how EM was acting, but quickly realized just what he was dealing with. Eventually, he turns to me.
Okay, sir. Please give me your version of what happened."
I did so. Funny side note, at one point, P.O. looks at me and says,
"You look really familiar. Do I know you?"
It actually turned out the police officer and I went to high school together. Once we recognized each other, we laughed and shook hands very briefly. This was hilarious because out of the corner of my eye, I see EM has a big skull on her face and she sees me getting friendly with a cop. But anyways, police officer puts his notepad away and just turns to me. Just for your information, he says the following with this heavy tone.
"I know that you're fully aware of this, and I don't believe you're in the wrong at all, but I have to say this as a formality. Well, OP, she doesn't want you on the property, so be aware that if you come back here, you technically can be charged with trespassing. Do you understand this as I've explained it?"
"Absolutely, sir. But officer, I want to press charges."
"He didn't do anything illegal, ma'am."
"But he verbally assaulted me."
"I understand that, and while that was ill-advised,"
he slightly turns to me and gives me a small gesture with his hand, and I nod in agreement.
"it's not something I could arrest him for. He agrees he will not come back on your property without your direct permission."
Ugh. Okay, fine. Whatever. Ellie, come back on inside. What? No. You heard the police officer. OP is leaving, and you're staying.
Whoa, ma'am. I didn't say that at all.
But.
Your daughter's not a child, ma'am. She's a full-grown adult. She has every right to go wherever she wants.
I'm her mother. She lives under my roof. I told her she needs to stay here, so she needs to stay.
No, ma'am. That's not how it works. If she wants to go stay with her boyfriend, there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop her.
EM starts to fake crocodile tears and stomps into the house in defeat. Ellie and I think the officer got in the car and left. We've been living together ever since. And here's the happy ending, guys. Believe it or not, EM isn't really much of an EM anymore. Over the years since that day, entitled mother has actually decided to make an effort to try to improve herself. I guess she realized that if she did not make changes, she would lose her relationship with Ellie forever. So, entitled mother started taking advantage of her medical coverage and went to see a psychiatrist and got medicine for mental illness she actually had, as opposed to the one she made up. Since then, well, she's actually gotten way better. She takes her medicine regularly and has a boyfriend that is an extremely kind gentleman, and he treats Ellie as though she were his own daughter. So basically, EM isn't really an EM anymore. We actually get along very well and we see them frequently. And we help each other out whenever we can. We actually look back on the early years when she was, in fact, an entitled mother, and we laugh. So, not only is everybody getting along, we can actually share the cringe stories and happily laugh about them. If you guys would ever like to hear some more stories, let me know. This is one of those entitled mother stories that gets crazier and crazier the paragraph I read. It could almost be considered a Karen story. The scary thing is, I think the only way entitled mother did not get away with it was because the officer knew who OP was. Well, in the end, it seems to work out, and Ellie and OP are still happy. So, that's a good side note. I love a happy story. I still have one more for you guys today. It's an Am I the A-hole story, which involves a 45-year-old female and some drama in the family household. My name's Mr. Reddito. I hope you're enjoying. Let's check out this final story. Not sure if it matters, but I, 45 female, and married to my husband Henry, who's 45 also. We have multiple children together, oldest being my twins, Christian and Elizabeth, both 17. Liz was going to turn 15 come January 2019, and as we are Hispanic, it was tradition to hold a quinceañera for a girl on her 15th birthday. Christian did not even want to go, but I said that wasn't an option, and it stopped there. Everything seemed to go smoothly until later on, when it was time to escort her into the party. Chris did his part, but he was not enthusiastic at all. Near the end of the night, it was time for the dance with Liz and her brother, but he did not show up, even after the announcer repeated his name 3 times. My daughter was left alone and she started crying, and I was absolutely furious. I could not believe he would do this to her. I tried to call his cell, but he had blocked me everywhere. After getting home, the twins never spoke to each other again. Liz adjusted to this just fine, but Chris, however, struggled with behavioral issues after that, and everyone else in the family decided to distance themselves from him, aside from my brother. I'm not sure what happened, but after this school year came around, September 2021, he took a complete 180. He had gotten a perfect score in the subject he never once liked, or was able to comprehend the material at all. His teachers thought he was cheating, honestly, and I confronted him about it. He seemed angry at the question but dismissed it and did not say a word to me. Anyways, last night I received an email about senior pictures yesterday and wanted the two to take pictures together, as this was such an important milestone, but Liz refused and called him a cheater. Chris retorted and called her jealous now that he has better and her at something. He would not want to associate with a crappy family anyways, which made me snap at him. I told him that everyone has put up with his bullcrap for so long, and he only has himself to blame for no one wanting to interact with him and the family for doing such a horrible thing. And he called me an a-hole. Henry stepped in and we told him that if he felt this way and talked to us this way, he would not be allowed in the house anymore. He ended up going to his room and calling his uncle about staying with him. And, out of nowhere, my brother starts calling me an a-hole and claiming I have always had a clear bias, and it was my fault the twins ended up this way. But I firmly reminded him that Christian was the one who ruined his sister's party. I don't even have a bias for either one of my children. To be honest, it's all getting me at this point. I know it sounds fake. I really wish it was. I really needed to know, how am I possibly the a-hole here? Hey guys, so I noticed a comment on this final story. Instead of giving my opinion, I want to see if you guys agree with this comment. It says, "You are the a-hole." Now, here's the reason why. He was 15, had behavioral issues, and that did not happen out of nowhere. and insisted of getting him the help he needed. You distanced yourself instead. When his mental health got better, you guys accused him of cheating, instead of acknowledging his improved grades. You are holding him accountable for something he did when he was 15, and at the end of the day, it was a birthday dance for one night. And then getting mad when your son holds actions over you. Yeah, you are the a-hole to the max. Let me know if you agree with that. I would love to hear your opinion on it. That's all the stories I have for you today. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and peace.